Up next, we have a amazing speaker, Ameena Lalani, and she's from Microsoft USA, right? Ameena, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I just caught the tail end of Lakshman's presentation, and I would
Yeah,
have loved it. But it's 7 a.m. here. For
yeah,
for that, I have to wake up at 6.
yeah. I'm very sorry about that, but like we have to check the time, and but really appreciate that you are wake up so early to share knowledge with the Singapore community and people who are watching us live, right? So I won't take much time away or overshoot the time. So please, the stage is all yours, Ameena.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my video for a few minutes so people know who is talking. Uh, let me share my screen as well. Okay, I think you can see my first title slide.
Yes, we can
Yes,
see.
we can
Yeah.
see.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about what's in there for Azure for database administrators point of view. So Azure SQL database we are going to talk about. So maybe you have heard about Azure SQL database, or maybe you have played with it. Uh, so this session will focus only on Azure SQL database and what it offers to the DBAs. So there could be, there are other flavors of Azure SQL as well, and I'm going to briefly talk about them, but just to set the expectation of the audience that it is about Azure SQL database. And this is about me. My name is Ameena Lalani, and I work at Microsoft in the role of customer engineer. And in that role, I help customer migrate and modernize their on-prem environment, remove their roadblocks, help them, migrate successfully, best practices after the migration. And also on-prem SQL Server I support because that's where I started my journey about 18 years ago. Um, and I do some performance tuning, optimization, also do the HA, high availability and disaster recovery. And I do a bunch of volunteering also here. One of them is speaking at user groups. So that's why I am here. Okay, so that's enough about me. And today's agenda, we are going to talk about Azure SQL database. And specifically in there, I'm going to talk about the administration, and then purchasing models and tiers, and then we will see a demo, how to provision SQL DBA. I will talk a little bit about security of Azure SQL database, and then, we will look into the high availability and disaster recovery options. And if time permit, I would do one demo of a failover group in there. So I hope that will take us to 50 minutes or so time. So let's move on. So before I explain various Azure SQL offerings, think about a pizza, and think about the pizza as a service. And there is no one way to consume pizza, right? You can make pizza at home from the scratch. Use your, all the ingredients, including the topping, making dough, fire up your oven, bake it, serve it on the table with drinks, and then enjoy it. Another way is that you purchase the prepackaged dough, right? So dough is there. You only have to, or you have unbaked pizza from the supermarket, and you come home and bake it and serve it, right? That can be your second option. Third option is that the pizza can be delivered to your home. So you only have to set up your table and sit down and eat it, right? Enjoy it. The another fourth option is that you go to a pizza place, your favorite restaurant, and eat pizza there. So there is many ways you can consume pizza. So same thing, there are many different ways how SQL Server is available to you in Azure Cloud. So now look at it as here. So made at home from the scratch, right? If you are making a dough from the scratch, for the pizza and then serving it. This is what your on-prem SQL Server look like. So you have a data center, and then you have the VMware where your SQL Server is created, and then you install the SQL Server managing databases and serving your customers. So this is everything you do. You are responsible for it. So this is like a made at home. So this is a lot of effort on your part. The second option, the infrastructure as a service. You buy the store-bought pizza, right? And you just bake it and just serve it. So you don't own your data center. So your data center is the Azure cloud, and you are creating a VM there. And you are responsible for the operating system. You use Windows, Linux, what version of SQL Server you want to install, and all the maintenance and administration that comes with it. So this is our Azure SQL VM, infrastructure as a service. Another option that we have is called platform as a service. And this is the case where ready-made pizza is delivered to you at your home. You just have to set up your dining table, put drinks, and then enjoy it. So this is a platform as a service. In Azure SQL database and Azure SQL managed instance, those two flavors of Azure SQL comes under this platform as a service, where you are not responsible for the disks or the operating system. Of course, you are not responsible for data centers or the VMs on which the hardware is. You are only concerned with the SQL server that is on there. And in case of Azure SQL database, only concerned with the database that is there, not even the SQL server you are concerned with. So that is platform as a service. The patching and everything is done for you. Most of the administrative task is done for you. So that's where we will be talking about. And another one is like a software as a service. This is just like you go out and dine and you don't have to do anything, right? Not even have to set up the table. You just sit there and eat. So example would be like your SaaS applications, smaller applications that uses smaller database behind the scene, which gets created automatically, right? So your CRM application or your ERP application, so that is, the database gets created automatically behind the scene. You are just using the service and paying for it. So I hope, this will be clearly much more clear that to understand different offerings. And we are going to focus here on the platform as a service, because that's where the Azure SQL database lies here. And if anybody has any question, I would say, since this is a small group, if you're monitoring chat, you can ask me anytime. That is okay with me. So let's talk about the Azure Database Administration. So think about your current on-prem. If you are a DBA or you are a DBA manager, you are responsible for keeping your SQL Server updated, right? So apply the cumulative updates or upgrade the version, right? So you are responsible. You have to take the time. You have to make a project and plan out, get everybody buy-in and do it. Right, so that's a lot of work. Automated patching also, you are responsible, you or your team, like if you have a Windows system administrators, who are responsible for patching, but they coordinate with DBAs, right, to do the production patching. So so here, in Azure SQL DB, that is done for you. Automated backup. So DBAs create a backup jobs and then maintain it, and then the full backup, differential, transaction. So everything is done here automatically. So how the backup works is that first time you create the Azure SQL database, it takes like 30 minutes to 1 hour to create the first backup. It will create it, and after that it will do everything on a schedule. So every week it's so by default you cannot change it. This is how the Azure SQL database works. Every week full backup is created, and differential backups are created daily. and transaction log backups are every 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the workload on your database and the size of your database in it, but between 5 to 10 minutes. Um, so um, so that's how the backup work. Then there is a disk encryptions are the disks that your databases will be encrypted. There will be a TDE, transparent data encryption, will be enabled by default. So it will be using Microsoft provided key, and Microsoft is responsible for rotating those keys. And then um, high availability is included, is part of the included in the cost, is part of the Azure SQL database. Depending on what tier you select, different types of HA available. I will talk about it. But the other database related tasks, such as DBCC, check DB, index maintenance, and statistics maintenance, and any other database related task, that is still responsibility of the DBA. You will create the indexes that you want. You will manage it, that if indexes are not used or they are duplicate, remove it. So there is an automated way available, but in Azure SQL DB, but that you have to turn it on if you want it. But you can manage this. You have to manage this yourself. Automated job is available only for index maintenance. It's not a job, but it's a service which will do the automatic index tuning, and then suggest you that this index needs to be dropped. So you verify and you see, okay, and then it will drop it. Or you can completely automate. Let Azure SQL decide, if that. So there is a manual way, there is a manual, and there is a totally automatic way. So there's different way of there. We'll not go into detail of that today. Okay, so the purchasing models, how you purchase the Azure SQL database. So there are two models. One is called DTU based, another is vCore based. So Azure SQL database, I believe, came in in 2012 or something. At that time, there was only one model, purchasing model. It was DTU based. So database transaction unit, it is combination of IOPS and memory and CPU and storage all combined together. It's like one bucket. So the bucket is called is like a basic or standard or premium. Under the standard, there are different sizes of bucket. So S0 will have, as you can see, it's a medium transaction work. It's good for medium transaction workload. So for S0, S1, and S2, you only get 250 gig for storage space. And then the transaction unit, the TTU you will get is 10, 20, and 50 respectively. So this is the lower end of the standard workload. So what are these basic, standard, and premium? So these are called service tiers. So in DTU based model, you have 3 service tiers. So basic is for very light transactional workload. You only get 5 DTUs. It's not even good for the development work, but for my demo work, it is good. But it's still for my demo, I'm using S0 this. So this is, you're like a sandbox. You're just getting into playing with it. You get 2 gig of maximum database size, right here. The second, most of your workload, you will fall under standard SQL Server production development workload will fall under here. And if you have a very critical workload or very heavy workload, then you will go to the premium. So of course, the price also increases. You get more space here. So while we're talking about space, the maximum database size is 4 terabyte. It's so it's in the preview, private preview. We are working on increasing the size to 16 terabyte here. So it will take some time, maybe by end of this year or the early next year. But we are increasing the size of this. So people who are buying premium, they can have their larger databases here. Anything larger than we used to say, till last year, that if your databases are bigger than 8 terabyte, then go to hyperscale. So hyperscale is another type of Azure SQL database. So there is Azure SQL database and there is a hyperscale database. So a hyperscale database is also a single database, which is a PaaS service. You are not responsible for operating system or even the SQL server. You are just concerned with the database. But anything big databases, it's a good way because it is the engine is very highly performant. The work inside the engine happens in a partitioned way, and it is very optimized. And that can go up to 100 terabyte. But now we have to change what we say, because now if 16 terabyte supports here, then anything larger than 16 terabyte, you choose the hyperscale. And these are the transaction units we talked about it, that and you see the price increase as you go here from left to right. So in the vCore based model is that we have separated the compute from the storage. So compute is the CPU and memory together, and the storage is separated from there. So you are paying based on the cores that you are buying, right? And in that model, purchasing model, we have different service tiers. We have general purpose, business critical, and hyperscale. So hyperscale don't have the DTU purchasing model, only vCore we talked about here. And general purpose is same as the standard in the DTU model. The general purpose is most of the customer SQL server workload will fall under here, right? And in a business critical is like sub-millisecond latency in I/O. So if you are in a business of what is that called, stock exchange or gaming industry, where sub-millisecond latency is important, then you would go for business critical. Is very expensive, right? And then I'm not going to talk about this, otherwise we will not progress more on there. But just know that vCore based have these service tiers. General purpose is the for most of the workload. Business critical is for the very critical low latency workload. That's only you have to remember. So let's jump into the demo. I would show you how to provision SQL database, and we will look at some of the administration tasks there. So let me. I just created this database. Okay, so I have created. So I am in my subscription here. This is the subscription I'm using, and in subscription there are resource groups. I have created a resource group called RG SQL DB. That's a resource group, which is the logical container of all the resources that I'm going to create in here. I just created one database called SQL DB1, and it is created on the logical server. So what is this logical server? I will talk about it when I'm going to create another logical server, another database, and in that I will show you that, right? So if I want to create anything in there, I will start from here, create, and I will just type Azure SQL. And it will give me 3 options. It's not Azure SQL. I want to create a SQL database or a managed instance or a VM. So we are concerned with that. So I'm just going to create single database. There is an elastic pool option, but we are not talking about that. And this database server is the logical server, which it will create, we have to create when we are creating a single database if the logical server does not exist. So I'm creating just the single database here. And I will choose my resource group, which I'm not seeing it. Oh, the description is not correct here. That was this Azure internal subscription and this RG SQL DB. And I'm just naming it. Yeah, so here it needs a server. So I already have a logical server east that I had created in the RG DB, and that's where I'm just going to create another server which will be in the west region, not in the east. So just wanted to show you that. Create a new. So, and you can name it anything. And this logical server is the underlying hardware that has the operating system. We don't know it's a Windows or a Linux. We don't know because you will never interact with that server because database has to host somewhere, right? So this is the hardware that it needs. But what we need from the logical server is its name. So name, because that's how we will connect to this database that we are creating. So the name is important. Other thing are, so we are creating a SQL admin. That will be the SA login. So that's what the admin password and the name we're creating. That will be the SA of this logical server, and that's how we connect to our database. So once we connect, we can create other logins once we are in the database. But let's do one step at a time. So I will name it logical server. Logical server west. Okay. And just US West. That's fine. West US 2. Okay. So this is done. Okay. So now we are not doing elastic pool. So no, by default, it will pick up the vCore. So if you want to look at the price, how much it's going to cost me, it's going to cost me $380 per month. But for my demo purpose, I will change it to the DTU-based purchasing model. And in that, I will go to the standard. And I'm choosing the standard 0 S2, which will give me 10 DTUs. And maximum, remember in standard maximum size, I get 250 gig. So that will cost me $15 per month, and I'm okay with that. So I can change this. You can change this later once your database has created with the default, which it provided $380. You can later go in database and change this service tier. So it's compute plus storage. So it will ask me the backup storage redundancy. By default, selected Jio redundant. We will talk about what Jio means here. So it's I'm selecting the basic. So next is the networking. There are three options. I'm selecting do not access. I don't want to go to public endpoint. Don't want to create a private endpoint. I will connect to it using the firewall. So I'm leaving this as that. Security, you can turn on Azure Defender for SQL. This is an additional service that you pay for. It is $15 per server per month, but it is like the whole. It's like a centralized in one place. All security settings, all security alerts, and monitoring. Everything is in that tool. Um, uh, and then additional settings that how you want to create a blank database or you have a backup that you want to use. So I'm just selecting a sample. So it will create AdventureWorks Lite. My database name was SQL DB2. Name will be that, and it will be the copy of the AdventureWorks Lite. So I will just go and review and create, make sure my price is this, and it is in West US, and then this is the logical server it is going to create. I will just create. It takes about 2-3 minutes to create it. Yeah. So in the meantime, I will open another browser here to connect to so we can look at it without wasting time. So in this subscription, I go to my RG SQL DB And I have already have this database created, right? So I'm in SQL DB1, and it is in the East US. And if you can see compute utilization. It just gives you, how much space. And this is also Adventure Work Lite database, the copy of it. So it was total space. I have 250 gig, so it is giving you all this thing. I can, so transparent data encryption is already configured for me. I remember I did not choose this, so it's not configured. Automatic tuning, I can configure it. Auditing is not configured. So these are available. You can turn on these things. Dynamic data masking, replicas if I want to create. So all these things are available from your database window here in the portal blade. Yeah.
Hi, Ameena. Sorry,
yeah.
just Aro here. I just want to ask you something. When you have this multiple geolocations, right? So can we pick and choose which location we want to put the data? Maybe I want to have data inside Singapore data center, maybe one in India, one in Europe. So what options we have to control in case we have multiple data to be replicated?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Will be in the Jio Replication slide that I have there, but the option is there. You can do that.
Okay,
yes.
Thanks.
Problem. So this is still going on. So let me see what's the other. Okay, that's the security one. So let's go back. Okay, what else you can do? So suppose this database, if you want to change the compute, as I mentioned, right? So you will come to compute plus storage, and I can change it here. I can change it to S1, and you see the price went up to 30, right? And size will remain same till S2. S3, you will get 1 terabyte starting from S3. So I'm leaving it there. I'll apply it, and it will change the, you will see that it will change to 20 here. So it's working. So it's showing me that it is scaling the database in progress, right? So the scaling is in progress. So this was our DB1, and DB2 is created already. DB2 is created. So here DB2 we created in that. Let's see if the scaling is completed or not. So if your workload is running, your database is serving your application, you can do this behind the scene. It is not going to slow down anything if it's not a heavy workload, if it's a regular one, because there will be some hardware changes underlying happening. See, it's changed. But it will not be that. So in case you are running out of space and you want to do it, you can do it live, right? But if it's a normal thing, you already anticipate that you want to interest, then it's better to do it when it's a slow time for you. And as a DBA, we know how to balance this workload. So now we have two databases. Now the thing is that how we connect to these databases, right? So we will use this name, and I will use this name, but I will not be able to connect because I have not set up the firewall. Let's copy it and let's see in the management studio. I will try to connect to this one. So my SQL DB1 logical server is I have set up the firewall. I was able to connect to it, and this logical server. No, this is again. It's so let me just hold on a minute with me. Okay, just hold on a minute. I lost it here. Okay, so this is logical server. So we want to connect to the DB2 here. So this one is not set. So I will connect here. This one. So logical server REST. So see, I'm not giving the database name. I'm connecting to the logical server. That's the importance of logical server, is to connect to it. but you will be only be able to manage the database in there. So let me provide my password. I will not be able to connect. Okay, it's asking me to sign in. It's asking me either I was going to show you through the portal, but it recognized the IP address of my client, my laptop IP address. If I add it, then it will allow me to connect. So only I can connect. So suppose I'm in the company. If my coworker needs to connect, and if I have not set up the public access or the private endpoint, then I have to add their IP address of their machine. Then they can connect to it. So this is the security level which we were going to talk about in there. So in portal, where you will go here is you will go as soon as you create your database, you go here and set the firewall, and you just say add client IP. My IP was added, when I tried to connect. So this is where you will, and then you can connect to your in the SSMS. And if you can see this, these are the AdventureWorks Lite tables in here. Another thing you can see once you are in, so if we go to the logical server instead of in the database, so if we go to here, and RGC. So if you see, these are created. So logical server west and east, and then I have a database in two different regions. So they are not like I mean, they are the same database, but they are not the copy. It's not a disaster recovery or high availability. They are different different servers, right? We have to create something on top of it. So I will go back to my slides first because we saw enough to talk about more things, and then I will show you the demo of the failover groups in there. Anybody has any question here? Okay. So.
Yeah, Ameena, I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is regarding the replication you mentioned, right? In the interface, what we saw in the Azure. So that replicated copy is like a read write or just read only?
So it can be both. If we are using a Jio replication, we can have the read. We can add a read only replica. We can add one. We can add up to 4 replicas. So you pay for it, but you can add that. But if it's a failover group, it will be only read only. So Jio replication is on the database level, and the failover group is the logical server level, or if in case of managed instance is at the SQL server level. So let me complete this security slide first. We are coming to the high availability portion of it after this security. So there is a security strategy described here. If you can see here, it's a layered, and you can see your data is here. It is protected by so many layers of security. The first is your network security, where you set up your firewall rules, right? So you saw that I set up my firewall rule at the logical server level with my IP, right? IP firewall rules, that is called. I can go further down. If I was on the managed instance, I can I can create database level IP firewall rule. So suppose you want only some people to go to be able to connect to that database. You can set, but that cannot be done in the portal or from the GUI. It has to be done through a T-SQL, SP set database firewall rule. So you can define, and this is database name, but there are further there are more parameters that is needed, the IP address and other things. But I'm just showing you here that you can set the firewall route at the database level. What we did, what in the demo I showed, we did that server level IP firewall. So this is the first layer of your security. The second is your SQL authentication. right? So server admin, the login that I created when I created this database, that is the SA, as I mentioned. And that SA, once you are in the database, in the logical server, you can create more logins if you want. So that is your second layer. And then in the second layer, also the Azure Active Directory um, protection comes. We use managed identities. And so this is in one place, you have all the user permissions, the database user permissions are, if you are connected via the Azure Active Directory identities, everything is managed in one place. So suppose in future that user needed access to the storage to copy files or something regarding this database, then it's easily, you can give the access there. So it's managed in one place. So when you go there, you will see, okay, this user has this database permission, this storage permission, you can see, and what permission, the copy or to delete or what. So everything is in one place. So that is also very cool. So that's in the access management layer. Right, and row level security, of course, if you can do that this on-prem also, right? If you have to create um, a function to provide that who can access which rows based on some criteria, security criteria. So you can do the same thing here. The third layer is the threat protection. Remember that advanced threat that Defender that I declined, that we pay $15 per month per server, which is the one centralized location for all your security related information or activities, like alert for SQL injection or brute force. Everything, is covered under this umbrella, advanced threat protection. And then, there are a lot of options available to protect information. So TLS, transport layer security, and the transparent data encryption, these two are enabled by default. You can, if you want a column level encryption, you can have always encrypted. You just want to scrub your data, don't want to encrypt it, you can use dynamic. So there are a lot of options available here. So some of them you already use on-prems, and there are additional, just like the server level IP and database level IP available in Azure to protect your data further. Right, and don't forget the identities, managed identities in Azure Directory. So these are, and I showed you how to add the firewall level. So we added this IP address in there. So if you want to add more IP address, you come here, add client P, type it, start and IP address same. So it will give you X, or if you want to provide a range, you can add it here. So here, looks like, if whenever the connection comes from the internet, it will look at the Azure database file first. So if it does not find any database IP firewall, then it will go and look at the server level IP firewall. And once it finds that there is a server level IP, so the IP that I created, and if I have multiple databases on that logical server, then I have access to all the databases. If I have created the database level IP, it will directly go to only that database. So if it does not find this IP rule or the server level IP rule, then connection fails. Let's talk about the high availability versus DR. Right, so we are getting there. So people have questions about the Jio Replication and failover groups. So we are getting there. So high availability is considered as like a synchronous replication, something very close to your server, in the same region, preferably in the same zone, and preferably in the same location, right? For high availability. For disaster recovery, you want that second replica to be in another uh, um, zone, or preferably in another region, right, to protect you against the disaster. So the failovers for high availability is few seconds, right? 30 seconds or less than 30 seconds. That means that you are highly available. Your users are not, To your user, the failover should be insignificant. They should not notice it, right? Not even a blip. With disaster recovery, it will take a little longer time, up to 1 hour, because you are recovering from a disaster in a different region, right? So it will be anywhere from 1 hour to 24 hours, depending on the size of your data and the complexity of your environment, right? And how well you have prepared for disaster recovery. So disaster recovery, you have to pay. High availability is included. You can increase the high availability, like more read replicas. So you want to make more read scale out, right? So you add more replicas in there. So you can add those for additional cost, but the basic high availability is included. Synchronous replication, you commit, the secondary is also at the same level as the primary. Asynchronous secondary will be behind a few seconds because it does not require a commit. So it will be few seconds behind. And we recommend it to be that way, because if you do the synchronous replication for disaster recovery, then your primary performance will affect. It will keep on waiting. I mean, it will not keep on waiting, it will wait longer to the commit, because there is a network between the two regions. So that's why asynchronous is the better way to go. How you measure, the uptime. So in high availability, we look at the uptime percentage. You have seen, right? 9.999 and 9.995. Those are the uptime percentage. And RPO and RTO, you know that, a recovery point objective, I'm able to lose only 30 minutes of data. Your company has defined an RPO or RTO, I can only tolerate 1 hour, 1 hour of downtime or something, to recover my data. So this has to be realistic and this has to be tested, right? You can make any RPO and RTO, but if they are unrealistic, they are not going to serve you in time of disaster. So what is availability zone? Let's talk about that. So availability zone is a high availability offering that protects applications against data center level failures. So think of a region. So East US is one region, West US is another region. In the region, there are data centers, right? So this here in the picture, you are seeing the data center. So there are 3 data centers, suppose in that. So these data centers are zones in there. And inside the data center, there is a rack, right, on which your servers are, or the Microsoft Azure cloud servers are on the rack. And there is a rack level redundancy in the same data center that is called the local redundancy. So there is a local, then there is a there is a zone redundancy, sorry. And if it is another region, if same thing is in another region, then you have the geo redundancy. So by default, we create the 3 copies in the same region for each database. That's what that's what it is. So you don't know. So it's something, Microsoft is doing some patching work. The Azure Fabric level, not your database patching. At the Fabric level, at their hardware level, they are doing something that they can fail it over to this year. You will not know, not even know. So this we create by ourselves automatically. It's created underneath, and you don't know where your replica is because it's not yours, right? You only have this data. So this is underlying. It's created. On top of it, if you want to create your own replicas, which you have access to, you can pay for it. You can, right? So this is called zone. That just think of zones as the data center in the same region. And what is this? So each data center have a separate power and the separate network switches, and everything is separate here. So if one data center goes down, the other data center is available. 2 goes down, the third one is available. If 3 goes down, then if you have a another region, then it will go down. So it's very, very unlikely, you know, that all 3 goes down. Yeah, region can go down, the whole region, you know, something flood came or some natural disaster happened in that area. So for that reason, you have to have a disaster recovery in another region, right? But the high availability, that's why I said high availability is provided, right? If you want to fail over here, so your users will not. Disaster recovery, you will create it. And Azure Management Services also, you know, are redundant. So if we are doing the automated backup and automated patching in one data center, if we fail over, the services that you have enabled here, they fail over also. So that those things will happen here as well. So it's seamless to you. You don't have to make any changes or anything. You know, you don't have to configure the transfer a SQL auditing suppose was enabled. Don't have to do it again, enable here. It will copy all those things that were there. Any question on the availability zone? Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So remember, this is an availability zone, right? We're just looking in a little bit more detail. Inside it, there is a local redundancy here. So this is called a local redundancy. Your server is in here, and then this is on the separate rack. So there is a redundancy in the same. And then, you know, there is the zonal redundancy in the same region. We talked about it in the previous slide, right? And then this is the geo redundancy. If you have this same setup in the different region, right? So if the whole region goes down, you can fail over here and run your business. So this will be not be instantaneous. There will be some downtime, but you have all your setup here. So only, and if you have your database is also geo-redundant, then the copies of those databases will be available here to bring them up here as well, right? And you can keep it up. There are different methods of doing it. You know, you can keep it with the Jio Replication, which we'll talk about from one region to another region. But the Jio Replication is per database, or you can use failover group to keep them in sync. So this will be in read only, and then it will be for multiple databases available. So it's your choice how you want to have that DR set up. Okay, so I'm going to show you the side-by-side DR, but so this is, if you remember, this basic and standard are the DTU purchase model service tiers, and this general purpose is the vCore service tier. So all these 3 service tiers, these 2 in the DTU, so we are not considering the premium here. So premium and business critical have a different redundancy architecture. So what we are talking here is about the low end purchase tiers, service tiers. So basic, standard, and general purpose have this high availability architecture. You have your primary server, right? In our case, it's a logical server, and our database is on that logical server. That's a primary. Somewhere there is another server. So if we have to fail over, it will fail all over, will be seamless, but underlying hardware, because logical server also, we don't know which hardware we have, what type of disk we have. We don't know. That is all transparent. That is not our concern, because we are only paying for the database. We are not paying for anything else. So we are not concerned with it. We are not responsible for it, and we don't want to know about it. Maybe you want to know about it, but you will not get that information because it's not yours. But it will fail over to any spare node capacity that is available. What is guaranteed is in this is that your SSD, your TempDB will be on the SSD, and that will be local. Here, this is in case of the managed instance, because in your case, In the database case, you only have your database here, but this is generally here. It fails over. Your data files and log files are in the premium storage, but this is the key point to note here is that they are remote. They are not on the same hardware where the SQL Server service is running. So just like your SAN, your data and log files are remote from the server. Your backups are in the standard storage, but also remote. Backup files are always going to be in the remote storage, never locally on the same server. So when you fail, what happens here, when it fails over, the only thing needs to fail over is the SQL Server.exe. That service which runs the SQL Server fails over because your data is already remote here. It can connect. And whatever was there, TempDB or it was all transient or cache data which you don't care about. Like TempDB restarts every time, recreated every time SQL Server restart, right? So that is what is guaranteed. When it failover happen, this is the high availability available to you in these tiers. So in business critical and premium. Premium is the DTU purchasing model and business critical is the vCore. You have 3 replicas available and you know which servers they are. You know the IP address or the name of these servers. So this is your primary replica. Same thing. Your transient and your TempDB is local, but your data and log file is also local. So in that case, we cannot have this kind of failover where you can connect to your data file. This will be like an availability group, always on availability group failover. Your databases, you can failover to secondary here or secondary here or here, and your secondary can be read only as well. Here, secondary will not be read only because you don't know the secondary. You failover, then you connect, and then you are up here. So this is the difference. There are 2 main differences. Number of replicas, you get only 1 replica. You get 3 more replicas, altogether 4 nodes. And the data and log file location, they are not remote. They are local to where the SQL Server exe running. And that's why you can have sub-millisecond latency available. And that's what you are paying for because these are expensive. But this, you don't have to create anything. Everything is created. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So DR solutions now. Let's talk about the Jio Replication. So this is your primary region and our logical server is here. So suppose this is East US region. I have a logical server and I have a database here. If I create a Jio Replication, it will ask me to provide the name of the logical server in different region. So this region can be my choosing. I can choose in which region I want to create the copy of my database. So again, if you see your user is coming through the Azure Traffic Manager it will always have this ingress IP address, and then it is seamless. You don't have to, it will connect to this because this is already set up when you do the Jio Replication. You don't have to do the redirection of application. It will redirect itself to here if it fails over, database is failing over. So and some people have question about that, right? It supports up to 4 secondaries. So let's bring the question here about the Jio Replication. No question?
Guys, if you have any question, you can just ask her. She will explain all the details in detail. Please, speak out, please.
Yeah, I think the question earlier, I forgot who asked the questions. Are the replicas read only, or is it just for DR, or can you enable it for read only transactions?
It's for DR only. So it's only read only. So the read only is available. but it's not a so it's like a transaction log kind of your transaction log you are sending there. So this is available for you to read. In failover group, if you don't have a Jio replication, if you just have a failover group, this secondary will not be available for reading. We will see, maybe I'm mixing it up for here, but I'm going to show you the demo for it. So I don't know how much time is left. So we are going into a demo right now.
We still have a few minutes if you want to show the demo.
Jump into the demo. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, we can see we are in we will create a failover group for the logical server east here. Let's go here. So here is failover group, right? I'll go here, failover group. Right now, I don't have any. So I will name it FG1, FG101. So it's asking me for the server, right? So either I can create, I already have a West available. So I will select the logical server West. You cannot choose the same server as partner. You cannot choose a server from the same region. Oh, I selected East, sorry, the West. So I'm creating failover group from my logical server East. So I cannot, failover group always has to be in the different region. That's the thing. So this I already, if I had not have a server in different region, I would have created it. And then read write is automatic. Failover policy automatic. I can do manual. Even if I've selected automatic, if I want, I can do the failover automatic manual as well. But if you select the manual, then automatic will never happen. It will always be manual. Right grace period. That 1 hour is the Microsoft takes it to fix your primary region. If something happened to your primary region, you don't want to just fail over right there because you might not have everything, all your other pieces in place for our application to connect to. So we take this 1 hour to fix the primary region. If we cannot fix it, then we will fail it over to the to your secondary region here. So that's you can set it up. But people, so this is also in preview. People want it to be 15 minutes and 30 minutes also. So we are going to, it's coming. We will come with the lower grace period as. But don't worry about this because you don't have to wait 1 hour. If you want to fail over, you can do it manually. Remember, if you have selected automatic, you can also do manually. And you have, if you selected manual, you will do manually anyways. So you can always, it's not like you are stuck. So let's create it. The failover group is creating. So since we already have that secondary server, so this should be faster here. So I wanted to show you one more slide here. Let me show you here first. So what is the difference between the Jio replication and the auto failover group, right? So Azure SQL database supports auto failover group. This is not correct. It is GeoDR also it supports. So I don't know why this is maybe old one. So let's not do that. I'm glad. So I have to fix this slide. This I copied from somewhere. Okay, it's created here, the failover group. So now you see this is my east and this is my west. This is my primary region and I created a failover group. My secondary is in west here. You can see that here and here. So I can and then here, the good part is that it gives you the read write listener endpoint. So if you connect to this listener, you don't have to worry about which server is your primary at any moment, right? And this is the read only listener. Same thing, if I fail over and this becomes a secondary, and if I'm using this string in my connection string in my application for the read only workload, you don't have to change it because it will connect to this one because now this is secondary. So it's very cool here. So if we connect to using the listener endpoint here, I did not copy it. FG. Copy it to clipboard. So let me. No, they're not this one. I don't know if I copied it or not. Okay, now it happened. Okay. All right, so I'm connecting with the listener name of the read write listener. Yeah, on the secondary, it could. So remember, I did not added the IP address in there because it created the database in the secondary, right? When we created the failover group. For some reason, okay, so I will go there. Okay, so for some reason, I'm not connecting to there. So let's go back to our RG SQL DB and refresh. Oh, it created in a different. It created in a different subscription, I think. Okay, so let's fail over. I will fail over here. Yes. So it's going to fail over. You can see that it starts changing. You will see it will go from here to here. And that's it. It's just happened automatically. You failed over to your secondary. So if I go here and so this is my server east. And this is my server west. I have to choose the failover group. So I think, now it's failed over. Let's try this. Let's try the secondary. Let's try to connect to secondary. And that's the only word that here is the FG. So failover group name, secondary, and the database name. So I'm connecting to the read-only replica. Something is not set up correctly, maybe that's why. Yeah, something as with my subscription, that's the problem is. But basically, you got the idea that, you can configure in different region, the failover group. So I can add, I only had one database, right? So if I go to here and I have to add more databases in the failover group, I can just add more databases here and choose. So I only had one, so it was included in there, right? I can edit the configurations I want if I want to change these. I can remove the database if I want to remove a database from there. And of course, I can delete the failover group. So another thing that I have is we did the failover group demonstration, and these are the resources. I don't know if I should put it in the chat, all the links, or how you want it to be. That's all I have.
Yeah, it was an amazing session. I think, Ameena, you can put in the chat itself. It's much easier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do that. So these are the links where you can go and further search on that. Let me see if I can stop sharing and then I can. Chat. So that's all I have. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope it was useful to you.
Yes, I mean, it was really amazing, and a lot of queries people had, and it was a good thing because a lot of people have questions about how it works and all, and the Jio replications and the read write and all for the DR locations. Was very amazing session. Thanks a lot for your time. I know it's pretty early in USA,
No,
but thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you. Bye. Have a
Thanks
nice
a lot,
day.
guys. Thank you, and we meet on 26th of August. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye. Good night, and be safe.